Hello, everyone. We are back with another episode of No Code Works podcast, and we are really excited because today we have with us Reece, founder of CreatorConcepts, which is a UK-based agency which builds apps, websites on low code, no code. So, Reece, thank you for joining us. And how are you feeling?
Pleasure. Yeah, very well. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Okay. So, Reece, someone who does not know about CreatorConcepts and what you guys do, would you mind explaining that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Creator Concepts is a company that helps startups, entrepreneurs, and also bigger businesses as well design, build, and launch apps, SaaS products, software, web portals, all using no code. We specialize in Bubble. We've been using Bubble for the last 8 years now, and we're a very small team based in the UK. I'm based in London, and yeah, we've worked on some fantastic projects, and we're not slowing down anytime soon.
Okay. So, you mentioned you're a small team. How many people are there?
So we have 4 people in total.
Okay. And because, when I was searching about you, Creator Concept started in 2017, right? So at that time, no code was not really, it was getting started. Nobody really knew about that. So what really pushed you through, this is going to be the future and you should invest your time in it?
Yeah, for me, I always wanted to build a tech company. So I fell in love with the whole idea of the Silicon Valley culture, building software products, building software companies. And I taught myself programming. Back when I was at university, I was doing some sort of coding courses, that kind of thing, because I wanted to start building digital products. And that's when I found Bubble, which was, I believe Bubble launched in 2012. So it was sort of 5 years in to its own journey at that point, and it was very much in its infancy in terms of the ease of use and the kind of products that it was able to build and what we were able to do. So I kind of picked it up, put it down, picked it up, put it down before really taking some time to invest in learning the Bubble platform and database structure and navigation and software architecture and all this other stuff that kind of comes with it. And then since then, well, I launched a software business, then I've launched other software businesses. But throughout that whole time, I was also sort of working with clients and building apps and software for clients in the background. And then I decided sort of a few years ago just to go all in on the agency side and just focus on building apps and software for our clients. And that's what we've stuck to today.
Wait, that's great. So you were someone who was using Bubble from initial days, we can say, because you mentioned that Bubble has been on its own journey because obviously it's a product and they keep on enhancing. Recently, they launched AI also because AI is in demand. At that time, how were they? Because you were someone currently people are working on Bubble, but since you are working from a long time, and why should someone go with Bubble? Because there are still, coding is there, right? So why someone should pick Bubble?
Yeah, I think when I was working on Bubble previously, when I first started, the learning curve was a lot bigger now. Was a lot bigger back then for people who wanted to get into software development and building things. It was also a lot harder to create really great apps. The editor was very different. It was a lot more drag and drop, and changing layout was very, very difficult. Whereas now the new Bubble editor uses a responsive design system based on Flexbox, so it's a lot easier to lay out your software or lay out your app, maintain things. Everything's a lot more organized. Apps are a lot faster, and also there was this misconception back in those days that Bubble was just for prototyping and creating kind of proof of concepts, whereas now Bubble have really invested in their architecture and their systems and their scalability because they want to take founders and entrepreneurs and business owners all the way from initial idea through to MVP, production app, and then potentially even IPO and beyond. So I think it's just a lot easier now and a lot better suited as a platform for serious businesses and serious builders.
Okay. You mentioned that there was a misconception about how Bubble was just for MVP. But this mindset is still there because not just for Bubble, but for no code platforms, usually people still think these are only for MVPs. Do you face problems in churning clients because usually no code platforms are not accepted as a scalable products?
we don't really we don't really have any clients that churn, i.e., have become a client and then left because of no code platforms or Bubble. We don't really see that. By the time a client becomes a client with us, they're already convinced that Bubble is the right platform, and they're already satisfied that it meets their requirements in terms of scalability, security, all of that kind of thing. So really, the only people that we see hesitate with using Bubble were never going to become clients anyway, or any kind of no code. Um, there's this misconception with any no code that coding is the better way to do it. And when you're working with early stage startups or businesses who should just be focusing on finding customers, validating a market, and growing their business, when they start to get tied up and trapped into, well, we want to own all the code, or we want to build on this tech stack and all this other stuff that really isn't necessary, it kind of becomes a bit of a red flag to us as an agency. And we've got sort of a certain amount of things we look out for when speaking to a potential client and whether we think they'll be a good fit. And having that obsession with if it's coded, not coded, whatever it might be, is kind of one of those things that we look out for, because it shows that they're not focusing on the solution and the problem that they're solving, and they're focusing on all the nitty gritty stuff that would just be a distraction. So actually, with these people who are just want to focus on coding, that's fine. There's great vibe coding tools out there at the moment, but what we see with those is people will generate their own apps. They'll get 75% of the way there, then the app will break, and then they'll end up coming back to us or to another agency, or using a no-code tool anyway, because they haven't necessarily got the skill set to debug and build um, apps from scratch. And those kind of generators are good, but they don't necessarily create a production ready app if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's true. You mentioned about vibe coding also. So, do you think that it's going to replace no code, or do you think it will be kind of an addition to elevate what currently no code can do?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we don't see it replacing it. We've always been all in on Bubble, and we continue to remain all in on Bubble. I think no code and vibe coding can go hand in hand. I have some friends who own agencies where they will prototype with vibe coding. So they'll use maybe Lovable, or something like that to generate a proof of concept to show it to the client and say, this is what we'll build for you. But then they actually use a different platform, or they use Bubble or a no code tool to actually build the app from scratch. So these no code tools out there are great for the client work, and then the vibe coding tools come in for the kind of early stage conversations, proving that you know what you're doing. We like to show up to sort of second or third calls with potential clients with some kind of prototype, whether it's a Figma design or a clickable prototype that we've put together using a vibe coding tool, because it actually helps in the sales process. We may not use it for the production app, but for that sales process, it can be really useful to actually proving our value as an agency and as a development partner.
Okay. I think that can be a good idea for someone, who runs an agency. Because usually clients, the visuals really affect what client thinks. And it's not easy to, build something in 2, 3 calls, right? So I think this is something that everyone can, take a reference from. You are mentioning Bubble again and again. Are there any other tools you guys work on as well?
Not on the no coding side. So we design, when a client comes to us, we typically will design the app first in Figma.
Mm-hmm.
So we get the user interface all designed out, make sure they're happy, and that's actually a process that we introduced fairly recently, probably only about a year and a half ago. We used to just go straight to building it in Bubble, but we found that there were so many client revisions. We actually now just design things first in Figma, get the client sign off, and then build it in Bubble. But from a technical stack point of view, we just build with the Bubble editor and maintain that. We've got a very strong process. That means we get apps designed, built, launched in 4, 6 weeks, really, really fast. And we want to kind of just keep compounding that. And if we start to introduce other no-code tools, we might end up extending timelines and stepping outside of these processes that we've created over the last few years. So for us, we just stick with Bubble, we stick with Figma from design, and it's from a design point of view, and it just works really well.
But in terms of integrations also, because Bubble has several plugins, but Bubble you can do several integrations from like with Bubble as well. Depends on client's requirement. What integrations you guys have done, and also one question because we are talking about Bubble. Do you think Bubble has some limitations? And it's yes, because you have been using Bubble for a really long time. Um, can you just give a gist about what do you think is still, is a considered can be considered as a limitation in Bubble?
So in terms of integrations, the great thing about Bubble is that it integrates with so many different tools, either via the plugin marketplace or via direct API integration. So for us, we've worked with clients where we've integrated HubSpot as their CRM. So when someone signs up in the app or the software that we've built, it automatically pushes their data to HubSpot or Pipedrive or whatever CRM it might be. And then we've also integrated with more recently the sort of generative AI platforms out there, OpenAI as well. We've created custom assistants to pre-train a version of ChatGPT or a custom AI assistant on the knowledge base or how to speak to customers. And then we've built like our own chat systems for clients and then integrated the Bubble app with those models where we design all the interface or the chat system and the actual app around it. And then we integrate it with OpenAI, for example, to manage the AI content creation. So there's so many different things we've done using AI, using integrations, using APIs, and it really just depends on the client project. And that's one of the great things about Bubble is that openness where you can expose API endpoints to allow other tools, Zapier, for example, to integrate with your app and send data or do actions within your Bubble app or piece of software. And then vice versa, you can reach out and extend into other tools, other platforms, other software from your app, carry out some operations or read, write some data, and then bring it back into your app. So that openness, still handled in a secure way, is really, really powerful with Bubble. In terms of limitations, we very rarely see any real limitations, and we always carry out a technical assessment when we're looking to onboard a new client. And that technical assessment is based on whether we feel as a team and also with Bubble that it's going to be a good fit. And very rarely do we turn a project away. It may be that it's just due to an area of compliance that we're not familiar with or something like that. But in terms of Bubble limitations, there are very, very few. We don't really do gaming or build games in Bubble. Bubble is more of a platform for developing apps, mobile apps, and obviously software web portals. It's very difficult to build games, but I don't think that's part of their core mission. Um, so gaming is probably the biggest limitation that we've seen, but again, I don't think Bubble lends itself to that type of thing to be built. Data analytics and heavy data focused apps can also come with some more complexities compared to just regular apps. So there are also opportunities to integrate the Bubble app with like a Xano database or other tools out there for more complex data operations and still use a Bubble app as the interface, as the wrapper on the front end, maybe using a slightly more fit for purpose backend for those kind of operations. But generally speaking, we really don't see that many limitations.
Okay. So basically, you are talking about if someone wants to, build games, maybe they should be like they can choose a different path, but apart from that, anything can be built on Bubble, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, really, it's just the gaming side. But again, we very rarely get those types of projects. But
Hmm.
in sort of 7 8 years of building on Bubble, we've seen very few limitations, if any, that couldn't be solved.
So usually the clients which come to you are still coming for MVPs, or the clients now are coming for full-fledged platforms.
Yeah, we've had a real difference in types of projects we've worked on. So over the last few years, we've been trying to figure out who we want to be as a company. Do we want to focus on entrepreneurs who have got ideas and launch great ideas with them, and maybe be like an equity partner? Or do we want to work with bigger companies, corporates? Or do we want to focus on enterprise? And obviously, enterprise deals have much longer sales cycles, and there's a lot more stakeholders involved. And with the entrepreneur market, decisions are made a lot quicker. The founders are usually very creative, and they've got a lot of capacity to make decisions quickly and decide whether to move forward or not. So we've tried to figure out what our ideal customer looks like. And at one point, we were looking to niche down and focus our advertising around certain types of apps for certain types of clients. That could be fitness apps for personal trainers or wellness apps for therapists, for example.
Yeah.
But actually, we found recently trying to go too deep with a niche or too deep with an ideal customer profile just caps what we're trying to do and it caps who we can help. So we've decided to actually just focus our niche or our sort of area of the market just being, well, putting a focus on our expertise and skill sets within Bubble. Instead of trying to pick some kind of app for some kind of person, we're just turning it into we do Bubble very, very well, and we have for this amount of years. We've got 100 plus clients from startups to enterprise already. And really, that's all we need to do to actually sell ourselves. We don't need to focus too much on ideal customers and avatars and all of this kind of thing. That just caps the market. So, to answer the question, the best customers that we work with are experienced entrepreneurs. So maybe they've exited a business before, sold a business, and now they're looking to launch their next thing. And that's great because it means they know the process. They are responsive over email. They show up to calls. They don't sort of no show or get back to us weeks later. They're very responsive. They have high intent and motivation, and they can make decisions very quickly. The second type of customer we like to work with is the more medium-sized business who are already well established, and we're working with either C levels or heads of department in those types of companies. It could be a head of marketing and they want to deploy a marketing tool, for example, or a branding agency and they want to deploy a branding software. They're also a really strong focus for us, and we try to appeal to both of them in different marketing campaigns. But we found that they work really, really well with us, and they're the best types of customers.
So, so we can see there is a shift, I think, from MVPs to bigger clients now because there are several big names that are also entering the no-code market, and they are trying to build something. So we can see a shift and a change towards it. Earlier, you mentioned the Xano and database for Bubble. Do you feel that privacy is kind of an issue with platforms like Bubble, um, because some clients want HIPAA compliance, some client wants GDPR compliances, etc., etc. Like they have their own set of rules. Obviously, it can depend on the country which they are building the product also in, because in some countries it's mandatory to be HIPAA compliant or something like that. So, do you think that their privacy issue is still a difficult problem, like a problem for Bubble?
I think it depends on the industry and it depends on what those requirements are. At least within the UK, GDPR is a very strong sort of set of regulations that need to be adhered to, and Bubble does make that a lot easier. They've got data processing agreements and other bits and pieces, and obviously the privacy rule mechanism within Bubble allows us to define what types of users can access which data and whose data. So actually, the tools do make it possible to be compliant in certain areas. You just have to invest in, an agency that can help support that, and also just making sure that your internal processes as well adhere to those regulations. A lot of the compliancy side of things isn't just on the application's infrastructure; it's also on your own policies and how you handle data and some of your own internal setup as a business. So I don't think it's much of a problem with no code anymore. In fact, I'd actually say that a lot of no code tools, Bubble especially, have very strong safeguards on privacy. They have the penetration testing that they run, the security monitoring that they have. Obviously, they use AWS for hosting and all of that kind of technical stack, and they have a lot of background processes from a security point of view and everything like that. So they actually do a huge amount to secure data. It also comes down to the developer to ensure that privacy rules are set up and that the database logic is there and the application logic is there as well to make sure that people can't access pages they shouldn't be able to within an app. But really, that just comes down to the developer more than the tech stack. If you had a developer who didn't understand any of that and were writing code from scratch, you're actually going to introduce a lot more vulnerabilities and a lot more issues from a compliance or a security side or a privacy side of point of view. Um, just through the developer themselves, not through the technical stack. No code does solve a lot of those things out of the box for you anyway. You just have to set up the right rule sets. Whereas with coding from scratch, most, if not all of it, is put back onto you as a developer or you as a business.
Okay. With that said, do you think, like for no-code tools, um, usually there is a conception that speed is kind of an issue because, for websites, for user retention, speed is very, very important. Sites loading fast is very crucial from customer retainer point of view for clients. Bubble, for Bubble, do you think it's as fast as coding platform? And if not, do you think it's too slow or what? What's your point of view on that?
I would say there's a lot of areas for improvement with performance and speed for certain areas. However, in the last couple of years, Bubble have really invested in performance and scalability, so it is dramatically faster across the board. Again, a lot of this comes down to the skill of the developer. So with our apps, we use query strings in the URL for navigation. So if we're building a piece of software, a SaaS product, let's say, instead of taking the user from each page as a physical page where they navigate to a separate page, we will just use a sub page within a single page. So it's essentially a single page web app. That way, the page only loads once, and then navigation between different sub pages within a page. Let's say it's a dashboard, and you're going from the CRM page to the settings page, is instantaneous, literally within a split second, under a second, by just structuring the navigation in that way, in a performance driven way. So when it comes down to things like page load speed, navigation, it is a lot faster than it used to be, but there's a huge amount that us as developers can do to make it nearly instantaneous or really fast from a just a general build setup. And that's the same with normal coding where you're not using a no-code tool. If you build things in a poorly structured way or a way that isn't performance focused, then you're going to have the same kind of issues.
Okay. So, since we are talking about speed, now the third topic that comes is SEO. That is also very crucial for any website because clients want to market, and it's to be believed that for no code tools, they cannot be ranked as top, and the SEO is also not good. What do you have to say on that?
Yeah, this is a really interesting area that I'm still researching a lot myself and looking into it a lot. I think with SEO, it's an ever-changing landscape. It's not something where you just go enable SEO and then that's it. So for us, we invest in SEO quite a lot. We do guest posts, we do a lot of optimization on our end, but it's a continually evolving process. So I don't think it's right to say that Bubble or any kind of no-code tool isn't good for SEO. I mean, we rank first page on Google for Bubble Development Agency UK, various different keywords. So it comes down to your market that you operate in, how saturated it is, whether you've optimized your site. Let's say you're using Webflow, which we do sometimes use, not for app development, but for maybe marketing funnels that we do for our clients. Um, there's a lot that we do in terms of optimizing for good page structure and navigation. And a lot of SEO now is more offsite. So backlinks, building up authority by having guest posts on legitimate websites with strong sort of domain authority, that kind of thing. So it's less about one click and done for SEO for no code tools. It's more about what your continual SEO strategy is. Um, And if you're willing to invest in that, then it does take time, but it does start to compound. And we're getting a lot more traffic now from SEO to our website just by having a blog every day, guest posting on other blogs, and also just optimization and that kind of thing. And obviously, the SEO landscape is changing a lot now, where it's you have these AI tools. ChatGPT looks at currently ranking articles on websites to make recommendations. So if you type in recommend me some bubble agencies or bubble developers in London, we will come up because we've got good SEO. So there's a lot of factors to it versus just the platform itself. I think the platform doesn't matter as much. It's more what your overall strategy for SEO is, just like any other website, any other tool or technology.
Okay. And since we are on the topic of bubble, I I just want to understand, since you have been in this industry for, quite a couple of years, why haven't you explored different tools? Because, the framer came in, and there was a whole notion that in Bubble you cannot do so much of animation, and not create such good landing page. Then framer entered, and it like blew the market because you can build so many animations, and pretty beautiful animations, we can say. They have got a love, like a loads of templates available on that. Then Bubble could not create apps, directly, because you had to have a third party for launching it on Play Store or App Store. Then Flutterflow came in, and Flutterflow you can, create launch your platform and publish it on App Store and Play Store from within Flutterflow. So all these things came like before Bubble could come up with these things. Different platforms came in. So I'm just trying to understand, why did you stick to Bubble so much? Yeah.
The rewards are always in who can stick around the longest and who can keep compounding over time. When I first started, I had very much shiny object syndrome. So I would try all the new tools that came out. I would jump from one platform to another to test it out. And all that ends up happening is you build this wider understanding of the market, of the no code market as a whole, but you lose focus on the main part of business, which is providing solutions to problems for people and charging money for it. And if you shift away from that to trying to try well, playing around with all these different tools and platforms that keep coming out, you end up just becoming someone who's constantly distracted by trying out these new tools to find something better and then something better and something better. Whereas if you actually stick with one thing for a long period of time, you get very, very good at it, but not just from a overall point of view of I can build apps. You know where all the pitfalls are, you know where most bugs come from, you know all these different areas that might cause problems in the long term for a client or in the short term for a new launch. And you really master the details. And that's what makes a really good agency in any kind of discipline stand out against an agency who just uses every tool out there, adopts a new tool when it comes out just so they can add it to their tools list, but they really don't build up any domain authority or expertise in any one particular field of expertise. And you struggle then to solve problems in a really in-depth way, and you lose all of that compounding effect. So if people now are leaving Bubble for all these new vibe coding tools, that's
Yeah.
fine because we're going to stay around with it for the long term, and
Mm.
we'll just keep ranking higher and higher in SEO and on the agency marketplaces and everything like that. And we just keep getting better and better. And every time you jump ship, it's like starting a new business. When you start a new business, you reset. So all that experience you had, some of it is transferable, but most of it isn't. And I've done this many times. I've started many, many businesses over the last few years, and you reset what you've learned. You lose all that momentum, and you just keep having to restart. And it's the same thing with adopting a new no code tool. It's fun.
Have
It
you
is a fun thing to do, but
have you tried all these tools? Like, do you guys explore also?
yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I've tried. When I say try, I've probably spent a couple of hours on a weekend on multiple different vibe coding tools, um, different website tools. But the thing is, they all essentially do the same thing, just in different ways
Yeah.
and different levels of quality.
Correct.
And actually, the clients that we work with, and most clients who are serious, they don't really care too much about the tech stack or whether you have animation in certain areas, because you can do animation in Bubble if you wanted to. They care about solving problems and serving their customers, and that's what's more important, not how modern the platform is from an animation or usability point of view. It's more about building something great and being able to maintain it over time. And Bubble has such a long track record, over 10 years now. There's no reason to keep changing.
Okay, that's a fair point. I think that makes sense. You because I think when everyone is trying the new tools, you were saying that, I want to build expertise. And when I say expertise, you're like, you need to understand or what is the XYZ of for Bubble, and so that you can help clients to build the right solution. Which is fine, which is fair. Now, some questions related to, entrepreneurs, because you mentioned that you have done two exits, right? Exits, because I was seeing your LinkedIn, and when I was researching about this podcast. Um, so two, three things. First, you have been surviving from 2017. How do you get clients? Um, to sustain your agency? And the second
Mm.
question will be, because you mentioned about the two micro exit, can you just explain in brief what were they and like what your journey looked like?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of how we get clients for the agency, this is something that does often change. It's very difficult to just stick to one acquisition channel. So we've experimented with search engine optimization. We do get a lot of clients from referrals. So other agencies that we've partnered with, web design agencies, often people who think they need a website actually need a web app or a web portal. So we get referrals from some of those types of partners. And then we also have referrals from just clients who've had really good experiences. They'll tell their friends or, they'll refer other businesses. Search engine optimization, SEO, is starting to work for us now as well. Google Ads is something we've experimented with. It's very, very difficult to get Google Ads right. We found
Yeah.
that we have a really strong campaign that works for a certain amount of time and then it stops working,
Mm,
and then we have to really retry and change everything. We do get quite a few clients from Facebook and Instagram advertising, so we do meta ads as well. That is a whole different ball game. There's a lot more creative, a lot more ads that we have to sort of put out every week. We're always changing things to try and find the right type of customer through Meta. With these with cold traffic, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn advertising, cold traffic is a lot harder to convert into a client just because they've never heard of you, don't know who you are,
mm,
and there's not really a trust barrier. There's not really a trust. Yeah, they haven't overcome that trust barrier. So that takes a little bit longer compared to Google Ads, where the conversion is usually a lot quicker because they're actually searching for services like what we provide. We also do a little bit of outbound, so reaching out, handpicking potential customers that we want to work with, sending
mm.
them an email, but not
Emails, yeah,
using AI. So it's all done manually. So they're just
yeah.
a few strategies that we use. In terms of like my entrepreneurship journey, so I started off when I was 18, I'm
That's too
28
young.
now. Yeah, so I started off, yeah, about 10 years ago. I started. I started off as a web designer, and over the course of the last sort of 10 years, I've built micro SaaS products, so software that solve a particular problem. It could be anything from, well, I had a product management software which helped product managers gather feedback and track feature demand in software products. So you could create your own board, add different feature ideas for your software, and then your community, your users, your customers could vote on different features and like discuss it. So it was a way to build a bit of a community around your product. I've also launched and built a social media management software for agencies, which used AI and machine learning before we had ChatGPT and before we had all of that stuff. Now, this was a few years back. Very, very hard business to run. The social media space is saturated,
Mm,
even more so
yeah.
now, but was very much then. So I think my overall sort of journey has been really just testing and trying different approaches, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. But the key takeaway for me is focus trumps everything else. If you can focus on a particular business and solving a particular problem for an extended period of time, that's the winning formula. I've got a few friends who are very, very successful in their domain because they picked one thing and stuck with it and just did that. They didn't get distracted by other ideas or other businesses. And they just had one business to their name and they stuck with it for the last 5 to 10 years, who have now done exceedingly well. So the key takeaway for entrepreneurship is just pick one thing, get really, really good at it, and then just apply time to the formula. And that's how you will get to where you want to be.
Okay, that's quite a journey because you know, I mean, very few people start at 18, right? And you are one of them. There are still people who are trying to get started, but they have not. Maybe they're hesitant, maybe it's difficult for some people, or like they're early founders and some are like they have built product, but they're not sure of it. Um, they could take inspiration, I think, from your journey. So this is the last question that I'm gonna ask. If there is a one piece of advice that you would like to give to early founders and entrepreneurs, that has helped you, so that you know that that can help them as well, what would it be?
I would say don't focus on trying to sell things, focus on picking a skill that you're interested in, getting very, very good at that skill, and then working with clients to use that skill to solve their problems. So, as I said, I've worked on multiple businesses, multiple startups over the last few years, and now the primary focus is bubble development, which is what I started out doing 7 years ago. Throughout that time, I tried other things, marketing agencies, all of this other stuff, but actually, I just got very, very good at this one skill, which is bubble development, and have built that into the agency. So if you're not sure where to start, you're not sure what to focus on, what to sell, try and find a skill that you're interested in, whether it's website design, social media marketing, AI, and just get really, really good at that skill. And then that becomes the business, not you trying to pick an idea or trying to change the world. It's taking a skill, mastering it, and then selling that skill to other businesses who need it. That's really all entrepreneurship and service-based businesses are is selling skills.
Okay, that's a great insight. Thank you, Reese, for joining us. And this was an incredible conversation because we explored about bubble. And since you had so much knowledge for bubble, I think it was quite good. And there were several doubts and misconceptions. If anyone who will be hearing this podcast, it will be getting cleared for sure. If anyone who tries to, reach out to you for bubble and, building any website, how can they reach out?
Yeah, so you can reach me at www.creatorconcepts, so creatorconcepts.co.uk, or you can just Google Creator Concepts, and that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Reese. Thank you for giving your time. And
Pleasure.
yeah, we're really
Thank you.
glad that you joined us.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.